There could be some news breaking this week in the corruption investigation at Hartford City Hall. A hearing will be held tomorrow to determine whether the grand jury report investigating Mayor Eddie Perez and others will be unsealed. Ever since the mayor was arrested earlier this year, it has really cast a pall over the city that it does not need. And what will more negative news do? As part of our continuing look at the situation in Hartford, your capital city in crisis, we are joined today by one of the up-and-comers in the city, Democratic City Councilor Ken Kennedy. Councilor Kennedy, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
What are we hearing at this point that you, I don't want to ask, confidential things, but what are we expecting this week?
Well, quite frankly, I don't think we know for certain. This week we know on Monday there's going to be the hearing before the court. Court will decide whether to release the investigative documents or not. I know there's concerns probably with the federal side of the investigation, and we'll go from there. I mean, this has been a cloud over the city for some time. I think if the report is released, it will be good for the city in the sense that maybe we can reach a point and hopefully move forward.
So you'd like to see it released and everyone be able to read it and so forth?
I think at some point it's a public document. I realize freedom of information laws with respect to investigations may not allow for its release to the public, but I think it would be in the public's best interest.
We should point out you're an attorney, so you know all these things that the rest of us don't. Now, who's fighting to keep it sealed?
I don't know. And that troubles me to some degree. Obviously, the defendants may have an interest in having the report sealed, but the state may also have an interest in and of itself. If the investigation continues ongoing, if there's a federal investigation, there may be some interest in keeping it sealed that's for the public good. But from where I'm sitting right now, with everything I know, I would probably favor disclosure of the report so we can see what the state has found.
We are now going on 6 months of the mayor under arrest. How is it impacting the inner goings at City Hall, the inner workings at City Hall?
It's a good question. There has obviously, I think, been some political impact. But in terms of the internal workings of City Hall, I don't believe it's had any internal workings from what I can see in my position as a council person.
How has his work performance been since then?
That's another good question.
From your perspective?
From my perspective, the mayor's work performance I've never been comfortable with, and his approach to governing. His approach to governing has not changed. So I guess his job performance would be basically roughly the same. I've not seen him reach out any more than he had previously. He keeps his circle very small, continues to do so. And I haven't seen his priorities of governing change. Actually, I think maybe in some degree they've gotten worse, in the sense that we raise taxes, which I thought was the absolutely wrong thing to do in a bad economy. We raised taxes again, another 4 or 5 mills, which is pretty traditional for this administration. I don't think we looked at the interest of small business at all. And I think in the end that may be very hard for us to recover from, depending on what happens.
Do you think the current administration is business friendly?
No. And the reason I say that is if you look at the tax structure and what has occurred in the last 8 years, the mayor has raised taxes by almost $100 million in that time span. We've averaged $4 or $5 million, 4 or 5 mills in tax increase every fiscal year. I voted, I think I'm the only person that has, but I think I've voted against half the mayor's budget since he's been in office, for the primary reason that they've raised taxes too much at one time. The mayor has enlarged his own staff. He created additional departments, and our revenues in terms of our tax base are decreasing. We have a shrinking tax base as opposed to expanding one, so I didn't think growing the size of government was the appropriate action.
You're well aware that your name always comes up in terms of a potential candidate for mayor in 2011. Have you made a decision yet?
No, I've not made a decision, and I think that discussion is a little premature, given the fact that there's at least 2 years to go before there's an election, and depending on what the investigation holds, there may be an election sooner than that.
In layman's terms, if you were the mayor right now, what would you do in terms of the staff? How would you cut it?
I probably first would make some changes in the constituent services department. I don't think we need the mayor having a large constituent services staff, and then we've also got representatives of council. I have executive aid. Everyone has an executive aid. I think the mayor could do that with one person as opposed to the 4 or 5 that he has there. The legislative liaison office, if you keep it, then we need to reduce our staffing for outside consultants who help us on the Hill at the Washington or at the state capitol. There's no need for both. And if you do that, then maybe we can make some reductions there. The mayor currently has 4 or 5 people, I think, in that department as well. We have an Office of Youth Services and an Office of Young Children, separate departments. I've long said that that probably should be consolidated. I'd like to probably, if I were the mayor, focus more on a little bit of recreation services. We talk about crime and how bad it is in the city of Hartford, but we don't give our youth alternative activities. And yet our recreation department over the last 8 years has substantially decreased. I think they're related. They're one and the same in my view. And if you expand some of those youth services, bring them back to the way they were, I think you might help with some of our issues with respect to some of the youth in our city. We try to reinvent things sometimes too often. Some of the things that used to work in the past still work, and I think we can go to those things and look at those things for guidance and maybe at the same time reduce the size of our government.
As mayor, what would you do to recruit new businesses or perhaps get, I mean, as you know, some big taxpayers have left the city in the last 8 years, as you noticed, taking a lot of tax base with them and employers, exactly. What would you do to get some of those back and or to get new businesses in?
I think to get new businesses in, you have to look at a long-term approach. You have to, first off, I think, say, again, you're business friendly. We're going to reduce the taxes on small business. We have to look at both, well, let me give you an example. Bradley Airfield, for example, we're about to build a commuter rail, and the Chamber's been very effective in this, from Springfield, stopping at Bradley, going to New Haven, but it won't be a high-speed rail. We've got to think a little bit outside of the box here. To show I'm business friendly, I would try to, again, reduce the size of government, and then at the same time try to create activity for the city. With respect to the high-speed rail, Hartford should be the hub of high-speed rail throughout the Northeast. It's going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years regardless. We can either get in front of that curve or behind it. Within our budget, most of our money is not in staff anymore. It's in utilities. We need to adopt very green, proactive approaches to the money that we spend on utilities. For example, solar panels, smart thermostats that we currently don't have, replacing of old equipment. That's where the money is in our budget. If we reduce those expenditures there, we can then reduce our taxes and show we're business friendly, and at the same time push for new, innovative technologies like the high-speed rail system to come to the state to attract people from New York, from Boston, to say this is a great place to live, and it is.
Let's talk about the mayor's trial coming up into September, early October, we're hearing. Do we know how many days it will last? Any guess?
Oh boy, I'm not thinking as a city councilman at the moment, but as actually
as an attorney.
As an attorney. I would think this trial would last probably anywhere from a week to a month.
Week to a month, so he's not going to be really working out of his office for that entire time?
I wouldn't think he would be.
How does it work? Because I know viewers have asked me, does he get paid for that time while he's in court and not being the mayor? Does he have to take vacation time, leave time? How does that work?
I would think vacation time would be appropriate.
Will you push him for that as a city council member?
I would push it for that as a council member. Obviously, that's a tremendous distraction. It's hard for a lawyer who's not the actual defendant. When you're on case trying, you're very preoccupied. That is your focus. The mayor would not be able, in my opinion, to focus on his duties as the mayor of the city of Hartford, and probably should take vacation time.
Now, how does that work? Do you have to have a resolution calling for him to put someone else in charge while he's at? I mean, is he technically considered incapacitated, or how does it work?
You know, that's a very good question. I think he probably would be possibly considered incapacitated, but that's going to depend on what the charter says. During that point in time, though, I think it would be proactive for the mayor, if he were still mayor and on trial, that we have an acting mayor during that time period, allow him to take a leave of absence to concentrate on his defense, and have the council president step in as mayor during that time period.
Ken Kennedy, city councilor, Democrat from the West End. Good to see you back here again. And of course, if you decide to run for mayor, all announcements will be made on this program.
I will do so. Shelley has made the same request, but well, we're neighbors, so I mean, yes.
There you go. All right, Ken Kennedy, thank you very much.